Sure. So I'm always on the lookout for new methods, things that are coming out of the education research. But one of the ones that I found works really well, and I like to do as many, labs and classroom activities as I can, is something called like a jigsaw style, where each student is working in a different component. They're working on a different piece of a bigger problem, and so they sort of become the expert in that thing they're working on. And then once they've had time to work on it and understand it, they come together and they have to teach their classmates what they learned, as then they get taught by their classmates. And as a team, as a group, they're sort of able to solve a certain problem, a piece of a bigger problem. And so you just sort of keep building it up there, from the individual student to smaller groups to bigger groups, till eventually you can have sort of a whole classroom discussion working on that topic, whatever I was trying to teach that day. And really what that means is I don't have to lecture about it, because the students are sort of learning their little pieces and then teaching each other as a whole. So I've been turning a lot of activities, a lot of things into that sort of style. Along with that, I really like any time where we can have some sort of role play activity where students have to sort of put themselves as an expert of some topic. So they'll each sort of represent a different discipline, and then they'll have to work in teams to figure out the answers to questions. And again, anytime students are teaching other students, they're going to remember that information a lot better than if I'm just telling it to them, I'm just lecturing at them. So I try to be more of a guide or facilitator of their learning, instead of just, here's what I say, remember it for later. Something that I've worked on, especially in my field of geology in my classrooms, is finding things that sort of include all of our students. And something we all have in common, coming from all different backgrounds and all different things, is that we all live in this area. So I've been trying to work on what's called sort of geographically relevant or location relevant teaching, location relevant content. And so I've sort of recreated all of the lab manuals and things. Instead of using publisher designed material, I've made, our projects or labs or activities are based around things that are happening in our community. So our local rivers and our local mining issues and all the stuff happening around here in our area. Because that's something, again, then the students have seen in their everyday life. It's something they've experienced and they can share together. And I found that's one of the things that really helps foster those conversations across class and race and all the the backgrounds we have here on campus. And there's a lot of great stuff out there about how to do this, and something that I keep trying. With equity, to me, the way I see that is not treating everyone equally, because I think there is a difference between equity and equality. And so what it really means for me to be equitable in my approach to teaching is to learn each student's individual needs and bring in their strengths and sort of work on them, and teach as sort of an individualized way as I can. Now that's difficult when there's 20 or more students in a room, but the first part is just getting to know the students. So I start every semester with something called a values affirmation survey. So the students sort of get a chance to write down and express what they care about most. And this isn't just like a little icebreaker of something interesting about them, but it's really like, in terms of their family or their spirituality, in terms of their athletics or their academics, what really matters to them, how does it drive who they are. And that's something, I get to know them much, much better from that survey. And again, it's not for a grade or anything, it's just something that helps me get to know them, and I also then share back with them who I am and what I care about, and we talk about the things that are sort of happening outside of the classroom and outside of school. And from that, I get to know the students' priorities, and then I can tailor what I'm teaching and find ways to connect it with them and their priorities. So yeah, I think that the first step is always, if you're going to try teaching in an equitable way, you got to know who the students are, and you work on them with their needs. So when I think of my teaching philosophy, I'm thinking like, okay, I'm developing a new class. How do I go about doing that? Or if I'm redesigning a class. And I use something called a backwards design. So I go all the way to see what are my learning objectives. what do I really want students to get out of this class by the end of the semester? So I start there. Before I make any labs, any lectures, anything else, I start there. What do they need to know by the end of the semester? Once I have that, then I work to the next piece as well. How am I going to know if they've been learning that, right? What are my sort of assessment strategies? What types of activities, whether they're posters or tests or presentations, what things are going to allow them to show me what they've learned, and have they met those objectives? Then, right, once I have sort of my goals, my assessment, then I can start to build things like the laboratories of like, okay, what are the hands-on activities they're going to get to do to help them work towards those goals I have for them. And then finally, the last thing, which really is the least important part to me in my classroom, are the lectures, right? Like, what things do I need to teach them in order to get them ready for the labs? Then that's why it's called backwards design, because a lot of times we sort of start with that. Okay, here's all of our content, here's all of our lessons, and then let's figure out tests and stuff from there, and then maybe we'll throw on some objectives. But I really try to start at the other end and work my way backwards to the piece that what the students are seeing. So, especially in science, I think sometimes it can seem very out there and far away from the student's life. So I always make sure every semester in every class there's some sort of assignment that asks the student to think about and connect what we're talking about in class with something in their everyday life and their experiences and their memories. So usually I do this through journals. So usually on Blackboard, we'll have either a reading assignment from some sort of nonfiction popular book, not from a textbook or anything, or it'll just be questions that I ask. It might have them go read websites, it might have them look up different things or watch certain videos, and then they just get a chance to reflect on it. So it's, I'm not looking for any particular answers. It's usually the questions are about, what does this remind you of? What does this make you think of? Is there a class you took that this is similar to? Is there something you did in childhood or a place you grew up that's related to this topic we're talking about? It's really a great way that gives them a chance to make those connections. In addition to sort of helping them make those connections, I get to learn a lot more about the students, and I've actually learned some geology from my students. I'll have a student who grew up in a certain mountain range in Mexico, and all of a sudden now they've connected that to what we were talking about the Rocky Mountains, and I've learned a lot of things that way from those students. So it makes it relevant for the students, and it makes it fun for me. And one thing about relevancy, I always challenge my students at the beginning of every semester, and I say, if you ever ask me the question, hey, why does this topic matter for my life, and I can't answer that question, then I will not put it on the exam. And so far, no students have ever taken me up on that, so I think I'm doing a pretty good job. It's all about assessment, and we have formative and summative assessment. For me, the way I really have tried changing the way I think about evaluating student learning is to, sometimes it makes it a little more work for me, but it's having more open-ended style questions. So I really focus for the students and for myself to not be trying to get them to get a particular answer or to memorize certain facts, but to really understand concepts. So in a multiple choice question, it's sort of just right or wrong. So I use as much as possible more open-ended style questions where students are writing in what they do know about a topic, what they do understand about the question I'm asking, and then I grade it in a way where it's not right or wrong. There's a grade, a gradation there. They could have a partially right answer or a mostly right answer, and they get some points for that. And that's a way for students to sort of see how close they got. And then, if we do that over and over again, they might have started off of like getting a wrong answer to a somewhat right answer, a partially right answer to a mostly right answer to finally, by the time we get to the final, they've gotten all the way up to, they have the full, really good, complete answer. So, I think it's just rethinking about what classroom tests and stuff can be. I am also always trying to make sure it's more than just tests, right? Trying to look at, are there other ways students can show me what they know? So we do a lot of poster presentations in my classes or PowerPoint presentations. Lately, with things going online, I've been having students create their own wiki pages about topics in the class. And so just always think about the different ways students can show me what they know. Because again, my goal is, what have they learned? It's not about can they answer a certain type of question.